No, no. You got to point. I'll tell you where the point. I'll show you the point. The point.
You don't check when
I'm the one supposed to tell you. My point.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
hey,
Thank
listen.
Thank you.
I
Yeah?
apologize profusely. You know what I mean? I apologize profusely.
And
You
you
come in
guys
here
were
once.
professional with him,
You
eh?
come in here. You come in here. What 3-4 times a year? You want to run me?
He do more than that. That's my boy.
Good evening, ladies and
Right.
gentlemen. This is Ed Fields, along with co-host Rogan Smith, and the engineer today is Osprey, or as we say, Osprey.
You saying Osprey?
But I said as we say. I'm just
As
doing
we
the.
say.
I'm doing the voice.
Joey?
I'm doing the voice. You see. So anyway, how are we? How are you?
Tired.
You went to. I can tell people where you went.
Yeah.
Because you're not there now. You went to Dallas.
I went for
Because some people get very
Dallas?
sensitive about telling you where they go when they're
I went
moving.
for work, so I mean that's
Yeah,
fine.
but they don't like to let you. But they don't want to know you're gone. They don't want you to know you're gone because of safety issues.
Oh, what's
Like with the ambassadors say, make sure I mow your lawn and stuff like that when you're gone. So it's a
Nice
safety
trait,
thing.
nice trait.
You don't want people. But now that you're back,
Yeah.
you can say you
That's
went
fine.
because you're back.
Yeah, and it was for work, so that was cool.
Yeah.
It was a breakneck speed.
Did you see a lot of? I've been to Dallas, and one of my favorite places to stay is in the actual airport. Did you go to that?
the hotel?
The Hyatt in the airport.
I went to the Omni in Fort Worth.
Yeah, it's really cool to just stay at the airport. It's a wonderful. You don't even feel like you're at the airport, but it's.
I was there for the Coleman conference. They had the town car pick me up and everything. It
Oh,
felt,
the town
I
car.
felt like a
Yeah.
celebrity and whatnot.
I thought you went to a city, not a town.
What? Like in the city car picked me up. You're so
Yeah.
stale. You're so stale.
Of
Don't
course
use that
I am.
joke no more.
No, it wasn't a joke. It's a statement. Okay.
It was really good.
Osprey, you went away yourself. You went to Trinidad and Tobago.
That's
What
where
did
you
they
found me from, right?
What did they? That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
What did they send you? A carnival car?
Something like that.
A horse and buggy.
A parish car. They have parishes.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, they have parishes, right? That's what they call it instead of like constituencies.
Yeah.
They
Jamaica
call
has
them
those too.
parishes. Yeah,
Parish?
yeah. What parish are you from, sir?
St. Andrews.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
yeah?
Oh, okay.
Is that a
That's
good
where the
parish?
golf course is, right?
It's awesome.
Yeah?
Isn't that where the golf course is? In that area? Yeah. I've been there.
Oh, yeah.
People like Matuka and them from there. It's amazing, right? That you have these products that you eat all your life or you
What's that?
play with all your life, and you just, you just thought someone made up that name,
Matuk?
Matuk, but
I
that's the
don't know
people name. You never heard of Matuk pepper?
Matuke's
Candy. You ever heard of Matuk?
M-A-T-O-U-K?
Matouk.
Okay, I've seen it in the food store.
Yeah,
Yes.
What is it?
Matuk,
Oh.
like the hot pepper.
Super hot. Well, for
Yeah.
me, anyway.
They make a bunch of products, but you never hear that.
Oh, so that's
You into A and B,
Or Trinidad. How do they put
or
Trinidad?
or what you got Tabasco?
Trinbagonian.
Tabasco.
Trinbago. What? Say it again.
Trinbagonian.
Trinbagonian.
Yeah,
product.
they just making
Okay.
up stuff now. Don't worry about it. So you went and checked out Trinidad for a month.
Oh, you gone for a month?
So you rotate right out,
Oh,
Roti doubles.
double.
what is a double?
It's like what is it?
Your, mini roti, 2 skins, and then the
Like a
dal.
little.
Skins.
It's like a split pea soup in the middle.
Yes.
Nice.
It's like a
Mango
patty,
chutney
small
and-
patty with split pea soup.
Soup? Like, it's soupy?
It's not soupy, but it's a thick soup.
Oh,
Dal.
that's
It
nice.
tastes good.
It's not.
It tastes good. It's very
I don't-
good.
what name?
I'm not
What
big
is
into that shark and
Doubles.
bait though. That's
Doubles?
that's for the birds. Shark and bake. I can't handle
it?
it.
Shark and what?
Now I tell you what I like
Bake?
Yeah.
is that
You
codfish.
gotta educate the
Johnny
people on
cake.
what this is. I don't. Okay.
Bake is
Johnny
little,
cake. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, little fried bread.
and you say shark?
Fried down.
Shark and bake, yeah.
Yeah. Real shark.
Oh,
Yeah.
shark and bake. See,
By the
I don't
way,
know
we just
anything
want to
about
alert
this.
you that it's ecologically unsound to be killing off the sharks. Okay, just letting you know
But
that.
you eat it though.
I have a feel. No, I don't like it.
But you eat it. You
I
have
don't
to
eat it.
You have to have eaten it.
Well,
to
I
know you
did,
don't
and I was like,
it.
"What is this?" And they said shark.
Went to the
But
farm store.
what I like is your what's the thing that with the codfish? Bajul,
Bullshall.
bujal.
Oh yeah. Saltfish.
I like that.
Saltfish bullshall.
I like that.
I got to be exposed to Trinidadian cuisine.
I like
I
that.
don't know anything about it.
Yeah, you had some roast corn.
No, I didn't.
That's only really like a carnival type food, eh? The roast corn.
No, it's
It's
Olia.
Olia?
It's on
Okay.
us, yeah.
All right. So anyway, that's that. Your man, your man, the big D, the big T.
He made it.
Oh, we knew he would make it months ago, but
He did it.
I'm actually now, I have to be honest with you, I'm a little fearful.
That he.
I'm fearful. I'll tell you why I'm fearful.
From last year,
Yeah, but I'll
boy.
tell you why I'm fearful. That's why things can
far
change, right?
time.
First of all, he now has a 50-50. So it isn't like before when he was 1 of 17, right? But why I'm fearful is because there are a lot of things going on,
The social
right?
climate you're talking about.
The
in
social
States.
climate,
Mhm.
yeah, that
Could precipitate a win for him. Could push
That-
people over the edge and say,
yeah,
take a chance.
Bubba and them,
with
yeah.
the D.
Bubba and them ain't looking, they ain't feeling too good about what's going on with Obama.
These colored folks.
This is colored folks. They're getting out of hand. You know what I'm saying, Berthlin?
What's that?
Berthlin. So
Hey, and you know where I come from? Texas?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they love him there.
oh
Yeah, that's his
oh
city.
yeah.
Hey, I bought
Well,
out.
they're a red state.
I know.
They ran. Listen, any city on the planet where everyone wearing that hat,
Let me tell you, that cowboy hat.
yeah, that cowboy hat,
They
they
like-
serious. No, they ain't in a different
like-
mode. Yeah.
I bought a Time magazine with Donald Trump is on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
I should have brought a few today. And some lady from New York was commenting.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, "Oh, this guy," and you should see the stares she got from the people who turned around like, "You ain't talking
What
to
you
him."
what you mean this guy? You mean our guy? Trump?
She immediately went quiet. I want to say, "This is in New York," so
Yeah.
keep it on the
I
low.
tell you, it's I you know, let me tell you something. This is very serious. As you know, I like history and I like political science and you know all of these things, and we have to realize one thing: that throughout history, although George said in history we shall be all be dead, throughout history there are errors, there are shifts, there are things that happen. So you have hunting, gathering, you have the feudal system, you got the industrial, what do you call it? The what do they call it? The industrial revolution. You've got high tech. You have all these eras, right? And then politically, you have things like monarchies. You have revolutions. You have the evolution to democracy. But then you get these little outliers, these little fascist, authoritarian, extreme. What happened there? This just went off. What did you do? You hit the button. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, you're not as skilled. That's okay. No, I said it on the air.
And he totally
It's a joke. It's a
totally
joke.
Screw us up.
Of course you know it's a joke. Of course he's skilled. Yeah, do some buttons. Do some
Don't
buttons.
take it out on me.
Do some buttons. So you have these authoritarian, whether left or right type errors, and boy, let me tell you something. It's not good. It's not good. It's very, very scary. I definitely saw some Hitlerian type.
I saw that from
Moments.
last year. You just seeing that?
And as I was telling Erica on what is today? Monday, Thursday. They had a scene in there where Mike Pence, who you could not be more plain than this guy,
Oh.
and he said, I'm talking about his whole appearance, right? And he says that and the Republican Party is embracing everyone of every background, and for instance, African Americans. And let me tell you something. That camera, they had to find them two people.
It was two, eh?
It was
But
two,
a man.
a man and a woman.
Uh-huh.
A man and a
I think
woman.
I saw the guy. I only watched
They-
snippets because I had to go to my
They
seminars.
they find, and they stayed on them. They didn't even pan the
They
rest.
pan around
They just
the- it's
because
only
no one
two.
else. Yeah, it's just two.
I saw a guy and that was it. And he couldn't move that camera anywhere else.
Nowhere. So it's a little concerning. I'm having hope though that America is smarter than that. That's the word I'm going to use.
It's gonna be tough because
That people come up, but you got all this stuff with Hillary, man.
see, Hillary is not a clear-cut favorite the way I felt like Obama was. Even though there are people who didn't like Obama, there was overwhelming support for him. It's like they're choosing now between the two between two evils.
Yeah,
like,
but
which is the lesser.
I've been analyzing Hillary, right? And I actually believe that she's being treated unfairly. I'll tell you why.
Please do.
Here it is. Bill Clinton was doing all of the stuff. and he's more popular than her. It's kind of illogical.
Same way here.
He's the one who is doing this stuff.
It's because she's a woman.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's why I said I think she's being treated unfairly. She's the one who she lost to Obama. She had to deal with Bill's indiscretions and issues. He's the one who's doing all the stuff like meeting with the Attorney General, and she's the So listen, she did some emails. She probably didn't. Yeah, there was probably nothing malicious or intent with any intent. The mistake she probably made was trying to get around it.
She shouldn't have made that.
Okay, which is a mistake. But but these guys are against her too, though. It's like another Obama thing.
Yeah.
If I tell you one thing, if she wins, and the Republicans hold on to the Senate and the House, it's going to be worse than when Obama was there. Okay,
they're gonna fight her tooth and nail.
Yeah.
An eyebrow, an eyelash.
But one thing I'll say for her though, I think she rougher than my Bam Bam.
I think so too. Hillary's a junglist man.
I think she rougher than them. Yeah. She'd slap them upside the head. So anyway, it's a very, very complex time we're in, and I don't know. Maybe we needed to get to this point, but there's a lot of things going on, man. A lot of things going on, and I saw a movie the other day I think it was called Jones County. I don't know if you've seen it. Matthew, what's his name?
McConaughey.
Isn't it? It's about a gentleman a white guy who literally banded with escaped and freed slaves to fight off.
This is a new movie?
To fight off some Confederate looters and stuff like that. And it's a true story. But you see the kind of things that it's just scary, man. When they're trying to vote, they were all Republicans, the blacks. I want to see more post-Civil War movies, like right after Civil War, the time of Reconstruction, when they had a right to vote and the Union troops went. This guy tried to silence some people to vote. Man, they hang him and cut off his nuts, man.
What's the name of this movie?
Jones County something. Look it up. Matthew, look up the star. Usually you can find the movie. Yeah. But so anyway, and then of course we have the Democratic convention going on in the States, and of course come Wednesday, the F&M convention starts. So we're just in a convention swirl.
Are you going to attend?
I've never attended a convention.
Oh, yeah.
The only time I actually ever attended a convention is as a reporter.
Yeah, well, that's how I've attended as a reporter.
So I've never attended as a member.
I think I'm interested in sitting there and hearing. I want to be in the experience.
Yeah, well, good luck for that. So I don't know if I will attend or not. I may. But you're going to know everything by Wednesday. Wednesday 3:00 is when I think I don't know. Wednesday 3:00 I think is when they vote. I think for the F&M convention. So you'll know what everything is then, and then as written by one of the reporters today, the post-convention. See, that's all. The media is only interested in like the story.
What else?
They ain't interested in no unity.
The party needs to be focused.
No, I said the media ain't interested in unity. That's boring.
It is boring.
Yeah, we need more dissension.
You sitting there talking about Trump and all that because that's exciting. That's interesting.
Well, they have unity, don't they?
Where? In the Republican Party? You crazy.
More so than they did before.
You crazy.
You see how they boo your boy Cruz? They didn't like Cruz at all.
They didn't like Cruz. Plenty people like Cruz for what he did.
Not Penny, I can tell you that. Not Penny who was there. Your boy Trump's to come out step right on it. But it'll be interesting because I think that this convention, the Democratic convention, will have a lot of interesting speakers, and I think it'll be more upbeat. I think it's more advantageous, obviously, being the second convention.
Yeah.
Because you can not do what they did, like not plagiarize.
Hey, I didn't even get to talk to you about that, but that was too funny.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. So anyway, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and we will talk with Candy, the calligrapher. When you learned this?
And she's so skilled.
Where did you learn that?
I've always been. Well, it's self-taught, really.
Since
if you
when?
took more interest in your employees, you would have known that years
ago.
No,
right. Did you know?
No,
yeah.
from when I had handwriting lessons in primary school.
Oh, cursive.
Cursive,
yes. By the way, let me just tell you, because I know we have a
such.
minute.
Yeah.
I started the drums, man. I bought a drum set.
Oh, Lord.
Putting that on the bucket
So you-
list. Take that off.
That's
Boom.
plenty noise in the
He can play
house.
with that for one day, and he can put that in the corner.
Yeah,
Is
one
that
day.
often in another room somewhere?
You don't
far
worry
away?
about a thing. Okay.
Worry, 'cause he can play that one
Yeah,
day,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
that can be
yeah,
off in
yeah,
the corner
yeah,
somewhere.
yeah. That's why you're shaking your head like naughty. Anyway, so you know about naughty?
Ask him about this 2 months from now. See if he
Yeah,
plays
ask me.
those.
He'd be
No,
like,
don't
"Man,
ask
I
me. Wait till I
throw
on
them away, man."
stage.
Huh?
Don't ask me nothing.
Well, right.
Y'all got something going on, but I'm not going to say anything because I see a lot of honeys and sweet. Anyway, don't worry about it.
This is the baby
Oh
candy
my
today.
God.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the baby look.
What Rogie say? Minnie Mouse?
Minnie Mouse. She looks like Minnie
Are they
Mouse
puffs?
today. I love
They're
them.
little buns on the top of my head.
Puff is too
Like
much.
little mini.
They're not puffed because I can
Cupcakes?
take it out and then
Are
it'll
they
be puffy.
puffettes?
No, they're buns.
Pufflings?
They're little buns. I just, on the top of my head, it's.
Yeah, we're talking. By the way, our guest,
fun.
we're being a little frivolous as
Yeah.
we are, but our guest later
Like
on
rude
this
children.
afternoon is Sean McQueenie, former Attorney General, and I think we're gonna have an interesting conversation. A lot of people responded, 30-something comments, and a lot of pros, like
Yeah,
a
a
lot
lot
of
of pros.
lengthy,
A lot of pros.
But it shows people are really frustrated with things, and so we'll talk about that.
and
But
some,
now,
and some questionable comments as well.
yeah, and you just
Sheesh.
you determine which ones to respond to and
Oh
not
yeah,
respond to.
definitely will respond to.
So Candy,
Hi.
hey,
Hello there.
what's going on, girl? Oh, listen, I got to give a
you
shout
there.
out to Shauna and Kim and Brunette at
see,
Carrie's
I get-
department store. That's where I get my knaps and mangras.
I'm getting treated like a
Gross.
stepchild today.
No, I just trying to.
my husband said, "Tell you hi, Gandhi."
Hello.
He
Yeah.
listens just for you. Not
Yeah,
even for me.
yeah.
Not even for me.
Well, and I'm certainly glad that he's not telling me a shout out.
No shout outs
Nah.
for idiots.
So anyway, what's happening?
What's how you doing? I don't ever ask y'all how y'all doing, hey.
We good. No, you always ask. What you,
I'm,
I was
Uh,
like, I don't think you've ever done that.
I'm doing all right.
Southerner
I'm
again.
doing okay. What's happening?
Well,
Tell
okay,
us what's
so
going
what's
on.
happening today?
Yeah.
We always have these conversations. We talk about, like the divorce rate and the issues that are happening within relationships. But I wanted to take it back
Yeah.
to the very beginning of, how do we actually choose our mates?
This is good.
How do we and most times we meet we meet this person when we're very young or we're younger, and you got the typical, oh, will she look good, or he's sexy, he looks like he can take care of me. He's kind and he's sweet towards me, and you kind of base your which your wants for during that
time. So you
right?
could have
And
been
it-
younger and all that. Yeah.
right, and then you don't think, okay, well, will these things be of benefit to me
In the
10
future.
years down the line when I'm 35? What you, because love ain't always enough.
Yeah.
Love is a choice. Love is a daily choice. And some days I don't love you, some days
Yep.
I do. But,
This is good.
being sexy ain't gonna keep me there. Or
Long-term.
keep him there.
Things
So
start to sag after a while.
you know what I mean? Like the looks fade, you put on a little weight here and there, whatever.
Your hair fall out.
Exactly. You go through all kinds of different changes. Look at what this face ad
I
making.
know,
It's one of interest.
this is a good topic.
But, are those enough? And then, what are we ever even taught, like, really what to look for long-term partners?
No, I think a lot of times we are taught what to look for in a superficial way. If you're going to go for a guy, make sure he's this tall, make sure he has this amount of money, yada, yada, rather than focusing on somebody who is in step with you morally or educationally, saying, this is somebody who's ambitious and who wants to educate him or herself, who wants to, where this partner wants to see him or herself in a few years. You kind of get caught up in what you want and your likes in that moment. And then 10, 15 years down the line, you go, damn, we ain't got nothing in common.
Right. When did that happen? And how
Yeah.
did that happen? Ed has not said
I
anything.
don't know what his problem is. I think you need to.
No, I'm listening. I'm trying to.
You don't
I'm
want
trying
to
to-
contribute.
No,
to
no,
this
I'm going to
conversation?
We're
contribute.
having a
but I'm
very
try-
open, candid
I
conversation.
am, but I'm trying
putting
to
it the
absorb.
floor. Osprey, you
first
could-
of all, the first 5 minutes of your thing was very he-centric. Someone
That's
they
the
wanted
one
to take
we're
it.
talking
Yeah, I
No,
mean,
no,
I
I'm
don't
just
mean
saying.
to.
No, no,
yes,
know.
I get it.
So the second
Minutes.
thing,
Thank you. 5 minutes.
the second thing was that I just again I'm being I'm just
Devil's
thinking.
advocate?
No, well, I don't want to go in that direction. I just think that
I see the
there's a
holes.
whole variety of reasons why people do things.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, there are tribes and places in the world where they're being arranged. Now, of course, if you're referring only to the Western
Yeah, and
world.
they're
Talking about the
arranged on
Western-
criteria too.
Yeah. Well, they're arranged on how much cows you have.
Yeah, that's criteria.
Yeah.
That's,
But it has
you
nothing
know.
to do with the people's feelings.
No, well, we
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
well, we talking about the West. We
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, and for those
But-
people who they're being arranged for, they ain't care. But no, 10, 15 years from now,
Exactly,
that's-
because you ain't
Oh,
going
I
nowhere.
think they
That's
care, but they
arranged.
just have no
They can't do
choice.
nothing
They have no
about it.
choice,
About
right? But we have plenty choices
I
here,
think-
and
I
that's why
think-
we so many.
Yeah,
we
I
are the
just
way-
think I've come to the conclusion, and I've been speaking to people about it as a result of the conversations that we've had on this show, and I've come to the conclusion that everything that humans have put their hands on has been distorted and mutated. That's my conclusion. Okay, that wherever in history we were, when decisions were made to go in what direction, whether it's how to build a house or whatever it is, that we're living under distortion. In fact, we're talking about later on. We're talking about our political system, right? Again, and we're now in a position of distortion. Okay, so all of the failure, and let's face it. I mean, I think we could adequately say or appropriately say that based on the model that we've been presented, many relationships, the most relationships, have failed. That's a fair statement. So if you have a company, you and I have spoken this before, and you have a strategy, and the strategy is failing, you change the darn, because we're from Texas. You change the darn strategy.
Well, I think that's.
Bubba?
That's what we're talking about now too. I mean, we need to change, this criteria in picking your mate. It's not the superficial stuff anymore. Like it's not the, you make me feel good, but you're not gonna make me feel good every single day.
Can the criteria not evolve though as you evolve? Because even now, my criteria is going to evolve in 10, 15 years for what I want and, what I want my partner to be or how I want to be with my partner. Won't that change?
Mind you, I think we all have our own specific, our specific criteria, right? But I think there are some basic
Some core values,
psychological characteristics that every a human being should possess in a relationship that is. Lasts for a long time. But now the thing is, I know a lot of people going into it initially, okay, well, they see maybe the potential. Like, oh, I see the potential
that's true.
of, okay, he's, this or she is this.
He has no money, but I know that there's a potential for
But
him to
I
meet
see the
somebody.
ambition in him. I see that he's a hard worker. I see this and so forth. And sometimes that pans out, sometimes it doesn't. What happens is, if it doesn't,
Yeah.
and
you
you're
stick with
left like, oh shoot,
She'll just stick with it.
what's that?
He
I
said,
mean,
can
if you
stick
check
with
out
it?
for parents, why I think they were together for so long.
Our
They didn't do
parents?
the criteria that the young people are using.
Basic needs. Now,
You take care.
well, I mean, the reality is, but you see, we're also trying to quote unquote find contentment and happiness. And, I don't know how those folks felt back then, but I know that I would assume that a lot of women felt trapped. Okay? They didn't have the freedoms to do what they wanted to do.
Yeah, because I don't want to create this narrative like, oh, the marriages of yesteryear
They were
so
perfect.
They
They
were
go
not perfect.
milk the cow, woman.
And that's another misconception.
Get up and go milk the cow.
Everybody's like,
like
we
the
need to
love
bring
my
back this,
grandparents had.
yes, this old school
know?
love. What is?
I'm
what
going
is
out
that
on
as
the
opposed
on the
to,
range for about 3 or 4 months.
What is it?
When I get back here, I have that corn planted.
But
Why
so,
are you so silly?
but like, and he's answering the phone.
Oh, and he wants to talk, but I'm rude. I hope you notice this, Osprey.
Oh, open the gate. Open the gate. But no, but there are things like, like emotional maturity like empathy.
Yeah.
Openness and honesty, respectfulness.
Hold on, Candy.
Oh, technical difficulties at this time.
He's not there. That's why he's not getting in.
Yeah.
But anyways, go ahead, Candy. Sorry.
Ooh,
Yeah,
action.
sorry to our audience. This is how it rolls in the studio. But
But
go ahead.
yes, emotional maturity, the ability to be open, honesty, respectful, sensitive to, people's needs, empathy, empathetic. I think, some independence.
Yeah.
Stop going on feelings.
I talk about this ain't
being
no
in
like
love,
what's that?
thing,
Because
which is not
that's
necessary.
why? Because that's fleeting.
Yeah, it's fleeting.
What is fleeting? Sorry, I
He
didn't hear.
said. Go
The
ahead,
same
Oscar.
way you can fall in love, you
In
can
love.
fall out
Yes,
of
that's
love.
why I say love is a choice. It's a
There
daily.
you go.
It's daily, man. Some days you wake up and I'm like, boy, you roll over and be like, I really don't like this
He's there.
this gal or this dude, boy. But you make the effort. But a lot of people don't, I guess, think of that as like long term.
Yeah.
Oh well, he make me feel good and he's make me smile now.
So they get caught up in that medium term, I guess, love.
You know what?
that
We
emotion?
choose people that fit us, based on our existing emotional. I don't want to call it baggage, but that is our current situation. Where we are currently at emotionally.
So
I think.
if I'm feeling needy and he gives me a lot of attention, he might seem like the perfect fit because he gives
Boy,
me what
man,
I don't have at this
He's
moment.
the
You
class
might
right
bag
then.
him. That's
He's a
it.
class A Osprey.
And he's giving you that love and attention and that could be maybe like a false presence. But in your eyes, that's like, oh wow, he is this or he is that. I mean, I just think we ought to be very aware of long term.
Oh, we got to take a break. It's 6 o'clock hour. We're gonna take a break for news. And
Yeah,
be
and then
right
we'll come back. We'll deal with Candy for a couple more minutes, and then we'll have our guest, Shaw McQueenie. I had to go and do logistics. I had to go and do movements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you could
Ah,
catch yourself.
yeah. Okay.
Fields Live, brought to you by Alternative Dispute Resolution Bahamas, Bristol Wines and Spirits, Wendy's, Coca-Cola.
Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here, along with Rogan Smith, our co-host, Osprey, the engineer, and of course, Candy.
Yes.
Now, Candy, when we left, you were talking about this whole issue of how we choose people.
Right. I mean, if that's the path you choose to take.
Right.
Yes.
And I think, and again, I'm not trying to be, deeply philosophical about this, right? I'm trying to be as basic as I can be. I think we have complicated things. You understand what I'm saying? I think we have complicated things, and then we try to explain why it's complicated. Mm-hmm. Well, it's complicated because we made it complicated.
Right. Like being married for a lifetime.
Well, the whole thing about relationships and all this sort of thing. Because, I go back to this fact that if this was meant to be, it is in a failure mode.
Yeah, yeah.
So that means, in my way, that this is something that maybe was not meant to be the way we have designed it. And that we have complicated because, there's this, and you have to have the emotions and the feelings and touching and all this.
I mean, but that's the thing, though. It's either we have the conversations to discourage. Like, this is not the way. This is ought not to be
now
doing
we
this
talking,
anymore.
Candy.
Yeah, no, I get you. Either this is not the way, but you're gonna have people that they're going to do it anyway, and so. All right, if you want to embark on that, well then,
because they made that cake with the two people on it.
But this is, how you can achieve a long-term kind of a good thing.
I heard someone say the other day we were talking about what people do, like getting married, and the person said, if you don't have the money, just to show you how people do things, because it's a system, right? If you don't have the money to get married, just go to the justice of the peace.
Yeah.
Right.
But people, you know what it was? A banker.
Listen.
It was a banker actually saying, stop coming to the bank to borrow money for vacations
that
and
was-
weddings.
I saw an article on
Okay?
that. People
If you
taking
want to go,
loans,
if you
man.
want to get married and you don't have the money, don't feed other people. That's all that is.
Oh my gosh.
Don't feed other people. And you do not need to throw the garter.
Let me tell you.
It's to impress people.
I'm
Jeez.
telling you. You know, and
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
this.
yeah,
Ed.
yeah.
I planned my wedding in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks. There was no big shit, and I didn't borrow any money. I mean,
Yeah.
people are taking out loans. Like we had a very small, I don't know. That's going off
And
topic.
then, but the whole point is you have this ideal.
Right.
And then a month, 2 months later, you're going like,
What the world? Did
I don't even like how he smells. You know what I mean?
Like, why you gotta do that with his mouth?
Hence courtship, right?
See, now we're getting into real stuff, right?
But boy, that was a hell of a body.
Yeah, why you have to do that with his mouth?
Like, why and you sitting at the table like, why you gotta chew like that?
And then do I tell him that, or is that going to cause a problem?
Like, dang.
How long was this courtship again?
Was that?
How long was this courtship again?
What, Michael?
Yeah, no, she's being
Talking
generic.
Oh, yeah.
She's being generic.
Yeah.
You know, but it shows it goes to highlight again how I think in some way we all have to really. I'm not going to say discourage something, but we really have to choose our own paths.
Yes.
In a whole, not only relationships, but a whole range of things.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do what is comfortable for you. You know, this Brendan Bouchard is about how we live in fear that we will be judged by
Yes,
other
by other
people
people.
by the kind of wedding we have.
Because they can talk about, boy, this food dry.
Yeah, you think they had to have a morning wedding? I don't like grits.
What is it? FMT?
Like breakfast, they must eat too cheap.
Yeah,
to,
things
give
tight
us
for them, yeah.
Some lunch a
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
You know, it's.
And they only have
it's all-
cider. Wow.
I can't even.
I can't drink.
I can't even drink it this thing.
Yeah, I don't go to weddings, you know. I don't. I don't go to weddings. or
You don't
funerals
sound
and
like you do much of anything anymore.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of like
He's gonna be
I'm kind of
You
like
don't
in
go
Mars.
nowhere.
yeah.
I
Because they're
think-
just so full of fluff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway. But listen, I think we have to, you know, Candy. I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about if we're not going to talk about how to preserve it, should we be having a discussion about is this the right way?
Right. Are we continuing on this, this path?
Yeah.
And to simplify things, like less complicated. Maybe our lives will be,
Because you really have to have those two people on the cake. You have to have that.
yeah.
And even if you're Negroid, they have to be Caucasian.
No, I think they have.
They have Negroid ones?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
Things change.
Okay, but I don't know. I haven't been to one in a little while. Listen, Candy, we got to run. We really have to run.
Okay.
But this, people again. First of all, we want people to hear what we're saying as they drive home, and it may seem like we're doing it in jest and all that, but it's very serious stuff because it's impacting everyone,
Yes.
and it impacts people negatively in a big way.
And at the end of the day, you have to trust your own intuition. I think most people know, in their gut whether they ought to be with this person or not.
Yeah.
From a very early stage. But or you're in a relationship 2 years down the line. Well, might as well.
Might as
I've
well.
heard that 1,000
Might
times.
as well. Well, we was already together, so
Yeah.
it made sense.
It's too much work to
And
find
you
someone else and all that. Yeah.
But
That's not
deep
working.
down, like
Yeah.
it's not working. So you have to be
All
completely
you have to do is mouth that
honest
thing.
with yourself.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you
Candy,
guys. Tide
always a
goat.
pleasure.
Spoke truth today.
Yes.
Oh.
Osprey, we're going to take a little break in terms of breaks, and then we're going to have our guest, Mr. Sean McQueenie, on, who is our former Attorney General, and we'll talk about some good stuff. We'll be right back.
Live, brought to you by Alternative Dispute Resolution Bahamas, Bristol Wines and Spirits, Wendy's, Coca-Cola.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Rogan Smith, and Osprey is on the board. I'm going to read a two-line little snippet from the Motivation Manifesto by Brendan Bouchard. A better future can be imagined for segments of time, but it is only in this time that a better future can be built. Our guest this afternoon is, you get the honorable for life, I think, on that little dot, after the N. Okay. Sean McQueenie, who is our former Attorney General. How are you?
Quite well. Good to be here.
Good. I'm going to say a lot of things about you, so you might blush. But the reason why I read that quote, Sean, is because you had a statement in the press recently, and I'm paraphrasing, that you wondered if the forefathers, if they had to do it over again, would they do it the same way? And the reason I read that quote was because obviously when they were doing what they were doing, they thought they were doing the best for the future. But the reality is you need to have some flexibility. You need pliability. Yes. And that is why it is only in this time that a better future can be built. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When you look back, now, first of all, I do the announcement of who our guest is on the Facebooks, as they say. Are you a Facebook man?
No, really.
You're not a Facebook man. Okay. That's a good thing. I do it for my show. And the irony is, of course, you get people predisposing and pre-guessing as to what people's views are. And I can tell you how I know Sean McQueenie, other than from, when I was about 6, I suppose. Our families were very close. Was as a boy in QC, Queens College, when I was about 11, you would have been, I suppose, in the 16, 17 range. You were head boy at the time at Queens College. And there was a speech day. And the speech day was held at then Highbury High. See, I remember everything. And your speech was, and by the way, let me jump ahead. After his speech, they banned speeches for about, I think, 10 years. Okay? They literally banned, no, I'm being serious, they banned speeches. Because we used to call it speech day. We didn't have a graduation day, we had a speech day. And the speech was based on the inequality of the time, where I think the situation was we didn't have any Bahamian teachers, and we had maybe 1 or 2 black teachers, and you did a speech on that, and that became, we literally had, how I felt at the time, I thought we were having riots. I don't know if it went to that level, but it was that much of a protestation and a lot of hullabaloo going on. And I remember sitting and watching this, and as I said to many people, I have not yet seen an activeness at that level, at the high school level, since that day. And that's my honest impression. I've just not seen it. And so it's ironic when people call you a conformist. Yes. I said all of that to get to that point. It's ironic that they've called you a conformist, Unicom, of course, when you were fighting the system. Do you see yourself in that light that people put you in?
No, that's a fossilized Sean McQueenie. Although I think I see occasional sparks of it from time to time. I think I still feel as inspired now as I did 40 years ago, more than 40 years, the times of which you were speaking just now, to play a constructive role in developing the Bahamas. I think back then I was a lot more impatient. And the one quality I think you acquire as you get older is judgment. That's the one thing you don't have when you're young, because you're just so fired with the impetuosity of youth, as somebody once described.
Impulsiveness is a thing.
Yes, you just rush, blindly ahead. It's the old expression: you go where angels fear to tread. But as you get older, I think you mature and you understand that the art of the possible is something that has to be factored into the plans that you have. And it's a totally different time as well. I think back in the late 60s, early 70s, it was an age of idealism that was sweeping the world. I mean, youth movements of the kind you spoke about that I was involved in here were very much in vogue, throughout Europe, throughout Western Europe, throughout the United States. It was, the Vietnam War, the the famous, starting the Democratic National Convention today in 1968.
Yeah.
In Chicago.
Exactly. It was a tumultuous time. But it was also an age in which young people were very much inspired to change the world, as it were. And sadly, you don't see very much of that today. That's one of the big changes I think that I've seen. Looking back at the time that you were talking about and the time we have now, there's a lot of cynicism and distrust and a feeling that nothing is going to change and that, all of the sound and fury is for naught, But back then, I think we really felt that we could change things. And to some extent, we did.
You saw, I think, a little spike of it during the Obama campaign where the young people came out and thought, this is it, this could be it.
And you see
then
it in the
everything
Bernie,
Bernie
supporters too,
it seems to me, we've covered this before, that we were all sort of taken with a cause in the days of the 60s and early 70s. The cause was obviously equality, whether both here and in the United States. And so we could all rally behind that. And of course, that happened. We were able to achieve on paper, so to speak, the equality we sought. And then, for instance, now tell me first of all about Unicom. How did that, obviously the people who that name doesn't mean anything to them at this stage, but what did that come out of?
Actually, it came out of an idea that Perry Christie and Bernard Nottage had when they were students in the UK. Perry was a law student in England and BJ was a medical student in Scotland. And they just came up with this idea of having a youth group for university and college students, and it was called initially Unicol, which is a contraction of university and college. And then others joined. They actually, I think, seeded the idea and then sort of promptly disappeared because they were still in the middle of their studies. But the leaders that emerged in the Bahamas were people like Frankie Wilson and his brother Stanley Wilson, Francilia Bosfield, who became leader later on, people like that. And then I got involved when I was about 16 or 17 and became president the following year. I think I was 17 or 18. But by that time it had evolved into something called Unicom, which meant United Community, because it was getting away from the elitist university college thing.
Right.
Of course, I would have been ineligible because I was a high school dropout.
Right.
And it was very much preoccupied with the burning issues of the day. Actually, back then it was quite anti-PLP.
I remember.
Because we thought that Pindling and his crowd were not moving fast enough. We were the first group actually to make a consistent call for independence. This would have been like in the 1970, 71. Before the PLP latched onto it. We were very big on what was then referred to as the empowerment of the masses.
Getting rid of the colonial masters.
Absolutely, yeah. We had a flag burning on Clifford Park during the Queen's birthday celebrations.
Yeah. Oh boy, sacrilege.
We had demonstrations against the U.S. Embassy for dumping nerve gas in the Bahamas. We were real Don Quixotes back then, jumping from one mill to the next. But it was a time, as I said, of great idealism, and we thought that, and we actually had associations with radical groups. I remember going to the Black Panther Convention. I was reminded about it this morning because it was at Temple University.
You got your visa straight. You got it for 10 years. You got that covered.
They had the Black Panthers had something called a constitutional convention in 1971, I think it was, at Temple University in Philadelphia, and I was the Bahamian delegate from Unicom. So that was the kind of mood we were in back then. And then it was just a pressure group. It was not a political organization.
But it was sort of, I remember just distinctly, because if you were 16 and 17, I would have been in the 11, 12-year-old bracket. It was sort of as radical.
Well, what happened was it was very, very radical for its time, extremely radical. But then it took on a definite political cast. And what destroyed Unicom was a split. Frankie Wilson, who was one of our more prominent members, Sir Franklin Wilson, decided that he wanted to be a candidate for the PLP. And that split the organization right down the middle. There were a number of us who thought that that was the right move, that the idea was to infiltrate the political parties and then get a foothold that way. There was another group headed by Dr. John McCartney. That became the Vanguard. Yeah, exactly. And they split off and formed the Vanguard Nationalist and Socialist Party. But that was the death knell for Unicom.
They thought y'all was selling out.
Yeah.
Selling out to the man.
Exactly. and we were very closely associated with people like Trevor Monroe in Jamaica, who was then the sort of the leader of the radical protest movement in Jamaica. We had actually a branch at the University of the West Indies where there were a lot of Bahamian students. So it was quite a time.
So I know Franklin ended up being, I don't know if it was that year, but certainly ended up as a member for Grantstown.
In 1972, yeah.
So how did you, I don't know if I should say it I'll tell you off the air what he told me, then I'll see if you think I can say it. But how do you what happens when you get absorbed into the organization? And because going to where we are now, when we progress to where we are now, do you find that as a result, that voice of pressure gets muted?
Oh, definitely. Definitely, because you join an organization which is a lot larger than the one that you came out of, and it has, frankly, a value system and a center of gravity which is totally different from the one we came out of. Remember, we were going into the PLP at a time when the cult of personality, in particular the personality of Lyndon Pendling, was the dominant feature of the party. But at a time when the party was also coming closer into sync with some of the things we had been agitating for, in particular independence. So that is what I think would attracted us to the PLP, that there was a convergence of ideas. And then you had people, ideologues like A.D. Hanna and Loftus Roker in particular, who were the great nationalists of the time. And we found, these two guys in particular very attractive. And we were particularly close to Arthur Fuchs back then. Actually, if you talk to the old Unicom guys like Frankie Wilson and so on, they will tell you the one who we really regarded as our mentor was Arthur Fuchs. Now, so Arthur Fuchs, rather than Pendling, we thought Pendling was way too conservative. But Arthur Fuchs back then was a real intellectual.
Progressive.
Yes, and he was the guy who understood the great, French intellectuals of the time, Sartre and Camus and all of the others. And we used to spend a lot of time with him, and he was a great inspiration for us. And by that time, folks, remember, had become estranged from Pendling.
Right.
He had his famous falling out, I think it's 69 or early 70. And then, of course, the F&M emerged out of that. And some of our members, again, split off and joined, associated with the F&M. So it was a time of great political flux. But in answer to your question, yes, there's no way that you maintain your political identity as a group when you, in effect, get absorbed into a huge organization like the PLP.
So here we are now. If we, push the fast forward button, obviously you became Attorney General in the. Well,
I was actually chairman of the party for 5 years before that.
Okay, so that's so you really in the hierarchy now. You've been fully absorbed into the party. Did you at any time? And we try to get as because this is historical stuff for me. At any time, did you see the direction not fulfilling the objectives that you would have liked to see? Many
times. I was never somebody who was completely taken in by the political system. I always kept my distance.
Why is that?
Because I didn't think temperamentally I was suited to be an MP, for one. So I never ran for office. Pendling made all kinds of efforts to draft me as a candidate, and I always resisted it. I didn't think temperamentally I was suited to be an MP. And so because I was always in the Senate.
Was it because of the public or because of the discipline required to be an MP?
I just didn't like the kind of nonsense that had developed around the whole system of MPs.
Okay.
Actually, I did spend 2 weeks in what was then the Oaksfield constituency just to see what it was like.
Yeah.
And I left totally disillusioned. Because I remember walking down one street with a whole bunch of my acolytes in tow. And by the end of that street, I had been confronted with requests for refrigerators to help with some daughter who was getting married, some father who was getting buried. I mean, and I saw right there that the system of patronage and the system of and I think, that's to me a rank form of corruption, really.
Yeah.
Now it's interesting because
today.
It remains today. It's actually worse today.
Now there are lots of people, Sean, who would say, okay, so this guy is saying all of this stuff, but yet he was a part of the party hierarchy at the highest levels. in fact, as chairman, you're responsible for almost whipping people into shape, and maybe that's not the role you play, but that's what the role traditionally is seen as.
Well, I was chairman when we got rid of Ingram and
you were even the hatchet man and all this.
So it was a tumultuous time because it was right after the Commission of Inquiry when there were a lot of heads rolling, and Pindling was under siege, and he'd fallen out with Adi Hanna. It was a terrible time, really. And then, of course, we were in trouble with the Americans, and the FNM had taken on a level of aggression, unlike anything you'd seen in opposition politics in recent times. So it was a very
how did you reconcile this disillusionment and this recognition of the dysfunction of party politics being involved?
Because I think there was an abiding belief that the only way you could affect any change was from being inside the system rather than out.
Right.
It was easy to say, the hell with this, I'm gone, right? And there were many times when I contemplated doing that. But I thought that if you wanted to make a change, you had to be a part of the system. It's just that I was never going to be on the front line parliamentary system. I saw that. And I also saw the effect, the narcotic effect it had on so many of our guys who just could not walk away from it.
Power.
The power is the most intoxicating thing in the world. And in 1992, I became Attorney General in 1989. I publicly announced in 1992, before the general election, I was leaving. I committed to Pindling to serve one term. And I said that at the end of, which was true, that was my commitment to him in 1989. To serve the remainder of the term as Attorney General. And then I said I was going back to private practice. I was already a partner at Graham Thompson, and I took a leave of absence, and I told everybody I was going to be back in 1992, and I was. And the week before the election, I sent everything back to my law firm. I was gone. I was finished. But it was amazing to me how so many of my contemporaries who were ministers at the time just could not see it.
How you could give that up.
And how they couldn't see it. They couldn't understand it. And some of them really wanted to do it, but just couldn't,
I know this is a kind of a self-aggrandizing question, or at least it might appear to be so an answer. So having been inside, do you feel that the contribution you made at least tempered what could have gone askew, awry?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I look back on my time as Attorney General, right? Not in political terms, but in terms of what I was able to accomplish. And I see the effects of it to this day, 25 years later. I was the one who brought in computerization of the courts completely. It never happened before my time. I brought in the idea of night courts, using our court systems, our court infrastructure around the clock. That is something we still see today. I greatly increased the number of magistrates, judges, and I think we were really ticking at the time I left.
It was something I pulled out some articles. I don't know if you've seen. I pulled out some articles that I had written back in '82 about the judicial system of the Bahamas. I think I might have interviewed you. I'm not sure, but it was. I remember the first time going to court as a reporter, and I wanted to be an attorney. I wanted to be Perry Mason. And this was not Perry Mason world.
No.
There were no stenographers. It was just like, what's going on here? It's taking too long. When is Warren Berger going to break down the defendant? But so you felt that you had, so you have no qualms that you did make the contribution that you sought to make.
I feel very proud of that period. I was able to bring in some very progressive legislation. The financial services legislation in the country was overhauled. Brought in the IBC Act, the New Companies Act. We made a lot of progressive changes in the social sphere. The Sexual Offences Act, for example, which criminalized things like incest and sexual harassment. That was done under my watch. That legislation was put together then. So it was a very productive period, and it was also a period in which I had a lot of cooperation from the bar, from the private sector, because I was a non-political attorney general. I had transitioned as chairman of the PLB into that, but anybody who was back then will tell you I never ever allowed politics to contaminate my duties as attorney general. I even had to prosecute an MP. A sitting MP at the time who went to jail.
Right, that was from Macklin's, I think, was it?
Wilbur Moss, which was something I really regretted doing, but it was something which I think had to be done based on the evidence. And as I said, he was a sitting senior member of Parliament, and I caught a lot of help from that from political colleagues. But
It was what it was.
It was what it was. And, I acted on the advice of my professional officers. And so I think I was able to set a standard which I'm happy to see has been emulated by most of my successors, where we've moved away from this idea of a political attorney general to an attorney general who, although an integral part of the political system, because that's the way the system is set up, constitutionally the AG must be a member of parliament of either the Senate or the House of Assembly. But bearing that in mind, you still have to establish and maintain your independence.
Okay. I want to transition. We have 1 minute? 1 minute to break. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this out there, and then when we come back from the break, we'll discuss it. I want to now go back now or go forward and talk about how our political being, our political system has mutated to where it is now. And I believe it's based on the fact that we don't have a flexible constitution, that it is seemingly static, that we've not tweaked with the times. But I want to ask you your opinion of that, and we'll do that when we come back. Sure. All right.
It's live, brought to you by Alternative Dispute Resolution Bahamas, Bristol Wines and Spirits, Wendy's, Coca-Cola.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Rogan Smith and Osprey. Our guest, our very special guest, is Sean McQueenie. I don't know why I feel like saying senator, because it's that's what you were. But yeah, you got the QC in more than one way. I'm a QC too, but I know Rogan had a couple of questions as well with regard to some of the questions that or queries that we got on Facebook. But I want to talk. This is something probably that has catalyzed or given impetus to this show. And that is, and Rogan can tell you, because when we discussed why we wanted to do this show, we wanted to really deeply analyze things as opposed to just the salacious and all of the other stuff that these things do nowadays. And after just tons of thought, I just have this frustration, which I think is a reflection or a mirror of what everyone else is feeling, that the system does not function to obtain or to achieve that which we need to achieve nationally. That it is just those, when you see a chain that's all gnarled up, and you can't, get it loose, even though you're looking for that one piece of, thing that'll just loosen it. And it's almost that you have to pop it and start again. So the first question I would ask you is, do we have to start it again, or is it buildable on? Or do we need to, what are the options? Starting again, building up, tweaking? What's your view?
I think probably tweaking. I think the system as a whole is pretty sound. I think there is some tweaking, however, that's necessary. I think the basic problem you have is that this is supposed to be a system of participatory democracy. But the reality is people only participate every 5 years when they're called upon to vote.
For a couple hours.
Or if you have like a referendum, like we've had 2 of them recently, right? That's a form of participatory democracy. But those exceptions aside, it's really just every 5 years you get a chance to express how you feel, right? And I think that is fundamentally flawed, because I think you need to find structural ways by which the people can have a greater input into decision making. Now, perhaps it's to have a more highly developed system of local government. That's one possible avenue. Another way is to have a more developed system of referenda, as you have in places like New Zealand and Australia and California and so on, Switzerland, where during the course of the year you engage the public in a meaningful way, right? But there's no question that the expectations of the electorate have increased rather dramatically in recent times. And I think private radio is actually one of the primary reasons for that too. You've provided a forum by which you can have this mass exchange of views, right? But there's no question there's a lot of frustration. I mean, contemplate this. Pending was in power for 25 years, 25 consecutive years, probably even more than 25. From, if you calculate 67 to 92. I think that's 25. Right? Yeah. In the last 20 years, there has not been a single two-term government. Every government since the last time you had a two-term
92 and 97.
97.
Okay? 1997.
Yeah.
Because in 2002 it changed, 2007 it changed, 2012 it changed again, right? And that is symptomatic, I think, of an increasing impatience on the part of the electorate.
Yes.
When I say increasing, like over the last 20
Yes.
years, right? That if you don't measure up to your expectations, you're out. And frankly, I don't think the public really cares who they put in. Bahamian
We just
Bahamian
getting
electorate
someone out.
doesn't elect somebody; it gets rid of somebody. That's the pattern. And last time they weren't electing Perry Christie; they were getting rid of Ingram. And you go back and it's the same dynamic. It's almost as if you reach a point where you're just so ticked off with the government, you just shout next.
Yeah.
And you don't care who comes from behind the screen. It can be the Wizard of Oz, right? And that's a very sobering thought for politicians of both sides, right? For a number of reasons, not the least of which is very little you can actually do in terms of a serious program of reform in 5 years. So what you've had now is a succession of leaders over the last 20 years who come in with very ambitious plans, but before they can implement 1/10 of it, they're out.
And of course, there's all sorts of external forces that prevent them from doing it.
Exactly. But I think all of this, more fundamentally, is telling us how frustrated our people are. And I think a part of the frustration is that they don't feel that they are being empowered in the way and to the extent that they feel they should be empowered. That what they're doing is electing a government every 5 years, and then they just have to sit back. And all they can do is bellyache about it.
But the interesting part about that, and I'm sure that a lot of those who are listening will feel angst about what I'm about to say, and I've said it many times, is they don't seem to see their role in achieving that. So while our Constitution is fairly static and you need some sort of wizardry, that's the only way. I think that you lawyers have been sitting down for the last 20 years with these constitutional commissions and or these objectives that we need to achieve and trying to find some sort of legalistic wizardry loophole that could possibly change this, because our nuance is we have to go to the people.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this, Sean. I said to people, I've researched this, and in the history of mankind on this planet, never once has the conference of rights to a minority or disadvantage been done by the people. It's always through the legislature or the judiciary. And our system requires that you go to the people. But here's the interesting thing. The parties themselves have become these plutocracies. And you go to any branch meeting, there's 20 people there. And they're usually the people who have, a reason to be there, so to speak. We do not seem to wish to get it back, to be involved. We want a savior. And then when we don't get that savior, we're discontented.
You're right, because I think there's a tradition in Bahamian politics of what we call the strong man. It's a very South American type of thing, right? But if you look at the leaders that we've had, going all the way back to the UBP days, it's really been the strong man. Pop Simonet was the titular leader, but it was really Sir Roland Simonet, and he was the strong man of that era. Then there was Pindling, and then there was Ingram. Christie is a sort of defies the strongman model, although I think you see many of the strongman tendencies in him as well, because he, like the others, has a tendency to micromanage things.
But the system allows for that. The system allows for it. It's a monarchy almost.
The system allows for it, and because the prime minister in our system has extraordinary power. For example, this whole thing about the separation of powers is really mythical in relation to the legislature. The separation of powers really works most significantly in relation to the independence of the judiciary.
But even then, they appoint.
Well, yeah, but I think in practice and in theory, that's the one area of our constitutional system which works very well. I think the courts really are independent. But the legislature is really an extension of the cabinet, right? In the sense that whatever the will of the cabinet is, that will is going to be reflected in the work of the legislature. Okay, that's the way the system is.
I know there's very little. Think about this. Think historically. When has legislation been tabled as a result of cabinet decision that's been rejected?
Well, what has made it worse too is the fact that you don't have much of a backbench these days, because successive prime ministers, going back to Pendling, have appointed nearly all of their backbenchers, all of their MPs, either to the cabinet or as parliamentary secretaries,
Right.
which causes the system to break down. Incidentally, that was one of the areas that the Constitutional Commission recommended reform, that really there should be a constitutional limit on the number of ministers you could appoint, because this is just abusive what is happening nowadays, right? But that's another area where you can have systemic reform. But I think, again, more fundamentally, I think we really need to find ways where people can feel that they are having a greater direct input in the making of decisions, okay? Because right now they're sort of just bystanders, just watching helplessly while decisions are made.
If people are empowering themselves to select their representatives, it has to start from somewhere. Right now, of course, the candidates committee select the representatives, is essentially endorsed or rubber stamp, not rubber stamp, actually the candidates committee might be rubber stamping the wishes of the PM, for that matter, or the leader of the opposition, because it's the same on both sides.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wouldn't it be somehow at least a change to see more participation at the constituent level?
I think it's happening. I think that is one area where it probably is happening, although perhaps less visibly to the broader public. I know, for example, in the PLP, that whenever you have a contentious situation for a nomination, where you have two or more people vying for the same constituency, more often than not, the party will make a great effort to go into the community to hear the views, the contrasting views of constituents before making a recommendation who should get it. And very often, the political directorate would come at first instance with a candidate, only to have that candidate completely rejected by the party faithful, even before that candidate can get out of the box. So there have been cases where the party has come forward because of the leader or somebody else who says this is the man they want, only to find that you're sent packing because you just can't sell that candidate.
But
so
even
that is happening.
But even who they're selling it to is a relatively small grouping of people. I mean, for instance, you have a branch network, you might have 40, 50 people in it. So those 40 people might be the rejectors.
Yes, but I think it's better now than it used to be. Sir Franklin Wilson, going back to, I keep on using Frankie as an example, but Sir Franklin will tell you that in 1972, when he became an MP, he was not the popular choice at the beginning, Audley Kemp, who was a very powerful man in the constituency, and he had all the liquor shops and so on. He was the guy who had it really sewn up. It was basically Pendling who went into the constituency and said, no, this is the man, he's one of the men of the future, we need to get him in. And it caused a great, schism in Grantstown for a while, but you had that kind of heavy-handed political involvement. I think nowadays it's done a lot more diplomatically, and I think an effort is made in that sense to get to take the pulse and temperature of the people.
So right now, as we speak, and this is paraphrasing my little announcement that you'd be on the show, and this is literal. There are tons of groups out there. As you know, I actually tried to start a group, We the People, which was more community-minded. It was not politically oriented, but community-minded. But there are tons. I just met a young man, we're going to have him on the show, Rogan, the other day, who's doing something in Carmichael, for instance. There are a whole range of people.
Is that Renard?
Renard.
Yeah.
Wonderful young fella.
Yeah.
Who are trying to find a way. But the reality is the system is really an obstacle. Now, you're an attorney, you're former attorney general, great legal mind. We're because I'm afraid of it, because you know what happens when a system is inflexible enough, it breaks.
Yeah.
And the result of the breaking is not good. It doesn't manifest well.
I think that if third parties can get their act together and get financing and get access to the media, they probably will do a lot better this time than they've ever done before. I'm not saying they're going to win seats, but I think they could actually become spoilers or make the difference in certain constituencies. I mean, recently you saw, for example, there was a public meeting that a new group, remember John Boswick,
Yes.
Pastor Duncan and some others started. And the amazing thing about it was to see the number of people. The hall was packed.
Yeah.
10 years ago, they might have had 20, 30 people. But the problem is that we are still a party-dominated society. The two main parties continue to dominate the political landscape. And I think at the end of the day, that's still going to be the case here, because they're the parties that have the infrastructure, they have the political muscle, they have the financial resources, and nowadays, those are major factors in determining your political success or failure. I think what we do need to get away from, though, is that the society is overly politicized. Everything in this country has to wear a political label. And what you were talking about earlier, the idea of having community groups that do not wear a political label, have had a very hard time getting established because people are very suspicious. People say it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. You're setting up things for the FNM, you're setting up things for the PLP.
Right.
So it's very difficult to establish your independence and your integrity as a truly independent force in the country.
Do you see, and I don't know how we would achieve it, I the degree of despair. The Republic, well, first of all, let's talk just briefly about local government, because I think if we can't change the system constitutionally to change things, reform things dramatically, that there are things that can be accomplished, i.e., greater self-governance in Family Islands, New Providence. What does that take? Does that take just an enlightened leader to say, you know what, we're going to readjust the system so we give more power to...
What it really requires structurally is to have a greater devolution of power from the central government to local government. Right now, local government in the Bahamas is a bit of a joke because they're only dealing with purely local parochial things like putting up street lights, speed bumps, cleaning the
and they don't even control the coffers on that.
Exactly, and at the end of the day, they're still at the mercy of the central government because the central government controls the purse strings, and their remit is very, very narrow. There are very few things they can really deal with. I think the politicians, the central government needs to put greater trust in local government by giving up some of this great power it has, and not just items of power, but also to make sure that the funding mechanisms go with it too.
So, for instance, as most...
It's not easy to do, but I think that's...
But, I mean, couldn't we say, listen, we are going to allocate property tax in its entirety to where it comes from, first starting with the islands, and where the islands can't make it, like places like maybe Aclands, well, then the central government subsidizes it.
That was actually statutorily enshrined in the Real Property Tax Act years ago, where there was a provision to the effect that a certain part of real property tax revenues were to be plowed back into the constituency, the Family Island constituency from which it was paid.
What happened with that?
Family Islands only foreigners paid, but it never really happened.
And I mean,
it never happened because the excuse always was that under the Constitution, all revenue goes into the consolidated fund.
Under the Constitution.
Under the Constitution.
And is that something that has to be changed by the people as well?
You would have to change that.
Well, I would think the people would vote for that one.
All revenue has to be paid.
We can keep the money.
And of course, the excuse is always going to be that the consolidated fund is always, in proverbial overdraft.
Right.
So you can always find excuses to the reason why money's not paid. But I think what you need to do is to make a commitment to a reform of the system of governance, under which there is a systematic devolution of a lot of power to local communities.
But see, this is where again, Sean, I go back to the people. Which government is going to cede power? No one. They don't do it. No one cedes power. You have to demand it. And it seems to me that we sit back. I don't recall a single election cycle where people demand something on a party platform as opposed to a manifesto being handed out to them. So when is Abaco or Long Island going to say, look, you want us to vote for you? You need to promise us that when you come into power within 100 days, we're going to sit at a table and we're going to determine how we could have more self-government.
Yeah. I think the reality, though, is that it's only going to happen when you have political leaders who are not afraid of losing elections and who are prepared to make very bold and courageous moves, which do involve, at the end of the day, giving up a lot of the power they have.
Mm-hmm. Joe Darville said the same thing he's saying, the exact same thing.
Yeah. But you see, I don't think, well, it's the irony, of course, is, and I've never, I don't know if I've ever, if this is something that I'm imagining, that if you want to stay in power, it would seem to me, especially in these times that you speak of, where there's not going to be any sort of allegiance to a particular party term, to have repeated terms, that you're actually better off being brave and being innovative, because it seems to me that people will react to that positively, as opposed to continuing on to the same mold that you're in and failing. And it would seem to me that history dictates that you're almost bound to fail.
Yep.
So,
Well, if you look back and look at all of the great leaders, I mean, the leaders who have really been inspirational, I'm talking about the world
global,
stage now.
yeah.
When you look at people like Anwar Sadat, who was the president of Egypt and decided the time had come to make peace with Israel, I mean, that was regarded as heresy. And he, as you know, he paid for it with his life.
Right.
And similarly, Lincoln, during the Civil War with the emancipation of slavery, I mean, there are many who say that he did it for, selfish, cynical reasons, but the fact is he did it.
Right.
But again, he paid for it with his life too. So, I mean, these are examples of individuals who make very bold, dramatic, political gestures, which are more than gestures because they are designed to affect fundamental change in your society, but they're prepared to pay the ultimate price for it. The problem is most political leaders are only looking to the next election cycle.
But you would think that in our society, that the type of changes we're talking about are not ones that necessarily will cost you your life.
I would have thought that local government would actually keep you in power.
That's the point I'm making.
For a very long time.
That's the thing I'm making.
But you see, the distrust thing works both ways. The people distrust the politicians, but the politicians also distrust the civil servants, right? And so that's the reason why there's so much hogging of power by ministers and by the cabinet, because frankly, they don't trust civil servants to execute government policy in the way they think it should be executed. So they want to do it themselves. They want to control every aspect of it. And the same thing will apply to local government. Any devolution of power to local government, there's going to be a great distrust that the people to whom you're devolving this power, don't have the capacity or don't have the
resources,
even the judgment.
But you have to think though that when it comes to making decisions about your own self-interest, that the closer it is to you, the more prioritized it is, for one. That if you don't have the human capital, you will seek out the human capital to get the best result.
Right.
And certainly you'd think that in initiating a new scenario, a system of local government, that you can put in the right checks and balances to avoid these things.
These fundamental structural changes will happen when you bring into power somebody who commits, I'm going to be here for one term.
One term.
I'm not going to seek re-election. I'm going to resign as the leader of my party before the election is up.
But these are the things I'm going to do.
I'm committed to these things.
Right.
And I know that by the time I've introduced these things, I'm going to not have the sufficient, I'm not going to have the popularity and standing to do it anyway. Okay? Now that is the idealistic view of things, almost a mythological view of things.
Right.
Because I think the reality is you just don't produce politicians like that. Politicians, by their
well, it's a
very
rarity.
nature,
It's a rarity. I mean, the chances are you'll get more of a death.
They want to be self-perpetuating. They want to.
There's more chance of getting a despot than some sort of benevolence like that.
And ironically, those things are more likely to happen in non-democratic societies where you don't have this kind of accountability, where you can simply do what you think is right without having to answer to people if things go wrong.
But I'm going to get personal here. We've got about 2 more minutes. I want to get personal. You said earlier that you played a role, or you felt that you played a role, that was necessary to play a role in when you were an insider. Do you not feel now, with the kind of thought process you have, that your talent, your knowledge, your judgment, as you said, as you get older, is even more needed? Because people can look and say, look, this is a person who was inside the politics, inside the government, and these are the reforms
I think I'm still doing that. I think I'm still, I think I still make my views known to the powers that be.
But I mean, I'm talking about, I mean, you, obviously, yes, we know how you have, I think, a very close association with the powers that be, but I'm talking about publicly agitated. I mean, I don't know if you're in the agitating mode anymore, but and I don't know if that's the word I want to use, right? But you know what I'm saying, promoting. Let's say promotion of things like the need to go to schools and to go to communities and say, look, these are the kind of things that we need to be pushing in order to advance the society. Because I think coming from people like you, it means something.
Well, I think in terms of what we've been talking about today, I think I have been doing that through the work of the work I was doing with the Constitutional Commission. I mean, the Constitutional Commission, let me say again, our report lays out an agenda for structural reform of the systems of governance that can carry us a whole generation. There's 73 recommendations in there.
Right.
And so I think, through that work, yes, I am playing that kind of role.
Okay. Well, Sean McQueenie, we have to go. Like everything else, Rogan, we run out of time very quickly on these things. But thanks for accepting our invitation to come, and hopefully we'll convince you to come out again sometime, especially when things get heated up.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Osprey, thank you, sir. Rogan, we'll see you on Thursday.